Hello and welcome to the Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. Thanks for watching on YouTube or listening on Apple, iHeart, or Spotify. And please like, follow, subscribe, and share with your high school football friends. Looking forward to our GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia this Friday night and our first ever visit to the Den at North Paulding in Dallas as the North Paulding Wolfpack play host to the North Cobb Warriors. It's going to be a big Region 5 6A matchup that even though it's still early in the season, this game is going to play a huge role in who ends up winning the region championship in that league. And we'll have more on that game coming up a little bit later on here in the podcast. Coming up on this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to visit with Colquitt County coach Sean Calhoun, whose Packers are coming off a big win at Lee County on Friday night and are facing a very busy week this week. We'll also take a look at my Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast Players of the Week, a look at the latest recruiting news, top 10 rankings, and then we'll close things out with the top 5 games to keep your eyes on this week. But first, let's start with the 5 biggest wins of the week, and actually we're going to go with the 6 biggest wins of the week this week. And starting with 5A, number 9, Sequoia, steamrolling number 6, Sprayberry, 63-20 in the GPB Sports Stream Game of the Week. That's right. If you didn't know, in addition to doing GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia on TV across statewide GPB, we have a stream game every night that's available, every Friday night that is, that's available on the app and on the website at gpb.org. So check that out sometimes. We got some great games on this past week. Had a great game right here. Will Rajecki had a performance to remember. We'll have more on that in just a moment. It was a close game, 14-13 in the second quarter, when the Chiefs put the pedal down, scoring 3 touchdowns in the final 8 minutes before halftime to sting the Yellow Jackets. Sequoia cornerback Jedediah Marshall had 4 total tackles in this game and his back-breaking 91-yard pick 6 during that 8-minute stretch there as the Chiefs went on to a 63-20 victory over Sprayberry. It was shocking in not that Sequoia won, but the manner, the butt-whooping in which they won. It was shocking. 4A, number 1, North Oconee shuts down 3A, number 8, Jefferson, 35-0. Second year in a row, the Titans have beaten the Dragons by that exact score, and the Titans become the first team in over 30 years to blank the Dragons in back-to-back seasons. Quarterback Harrison Faulkner, who's committed to Georgia Southern, 12 of 15 passing for 201 yards, also 8 carries for 53 yards rushing. 6A, number 9, Colquitt County survives 5A, number 4, Lee County, 43-36 there. Packers jumped out to a 36-6 halftime lead, and then they led 43-12 going into the fourth quarter. And despite a running clock, the Trojans made a frantic comeback to get back in the game and make things a little tense there at the end. I mean, that's almost impossible to do with a running clock, but the Trojans nearly pulled off the upset. Huge game for Colquitt County, 4-star running back and Georgia commit Jay Lamar. And more on this game coming up in just a few minutes when we visit with Packers coach Sean Calhoun here on the Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. 5A, number 5, Milton defeated 4A, number 4, Blessed Trinity, 21-10. Defending state champs actually fell behind in this game, 10-0 in the first quarter, but then shut down the Titans and came back for the win. Lawson Estes had a block punt, and Billy Wyvoda scooped it up and returned it 31 yards for the touchdown. Milton defense held BT to 74 yards rushing in this game. 6A, number 3, Carrollton pulls away in the fourth quarter to win at 5A, number 3, Gainesville, 42-21. Trojans scored 20 points in the fourth quarter to register a big road win. Cam Wood, 4 rushing touchdowns, 145 on the ground. Peyton Zachary, big two-way game for him, including an 84-yard pick 6 to go along with his 9 catches for 122 yards. And number 1 on my biggest wins list, 6A, number 2, Buford holds off 6A, number 4, Douglas County in the fourth quarter to win 34-26 on the GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia Game of the Week. Wolves took advantage of some early Tigers mistakes and built a 30-6 lead, but then the Trojans made a game of it in the fourth quarter, making it very interesting with a strong run there at the end. Strength of the game, though, for Buford was their defense. They recorded 4 quarterback sacks, 6 TFL, had 2 takeaways. Defensive lineman Cam Simmons and 5-star Bryce Perry Wright, who's committed to Texas A&M, plus linebacker Joshua Eccles. had big games. Eccles had 2 quarterback sacks. Buford improves to 4-0. Douglas County drops to 3-2, but Tigers are getting their guys back. They had Devin Carter back for the first time the entire year. He's one of the top wide receivers in the country. He had a huge game, had a couple of touchdown receptions. The Florida State commit, Mike Norvell, was there to watch him play. And then Marcus Adam Carter, who's been out since the summer of 2024, missed all of last season. Dynamic wide receiver. They're going to get him back soon as well. And they flashed a freshman quarterback in there when Mike Johnson, their senior, got hurt. And so Douglas County is going to be okay. I expect them to make a deep run in the playoffs here this year, just as I did when I put out the preseason rankings. So they might be 3-2 right now, but watch out for Douglas County. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. Let's take a look at the players of the week. My quarterback candidates for the week are Lowndes Jace Johnson, also Houston County's Ryan Maxwell. But the winner is going to go to Cambridge Connor Langford, who was 27 of 34 passing for 374 yards and 6 touchdowns in the Lions' 52-42 win over top 10 Calhoun. Running backs of the week, candidates are Colquitt County's Jay Lamar, Carrollton's Cam Wood, but the winner couldn't be anybody but Sequoia Will Rejecki, 27 carries, 256 yards, and scored 7 touchdowns in that Chiefs 63-20 win over Sprayberry. Can you imagine? Scored 7 touchdowns in one game. Will Rejecki, without a doubt, running back of the week. Wide receiver, the candidates are Hoco's MJ Mathis, but the winner is Cambridge Craig Dandridge. We talked about his quarterback. Well, he caught 11 of those passes for 166 yards and 3 touchdowns in that Lions victory over Calhoun. Defensive lineman of the week nominee is KJ Green. He seems to live in this space. He was the defensive lineman a couple of weeks ago. In fact, last week he was the defensive lineman of the week. Had another big week, had 5 TFL and a quarterback sack. But the winner is going to be Brooks County defensive end Demarion Washington, who had 8 total tackles, a quarterback sack, and an 86-yard fumble recovery touchdown in the Trojans' 21-3 win over Fitzgerald. That was the first win of the season for Brooks County, which has played a very difficult schedule. State finalists, though, wouldn't count them out. They're back in my top 10 rankings this week as well. Linebacker of the week nominees are Milton linebacker Billy Waivoda, but the winner is Douglas County's Richard Dice. I very rarely have a winner from a team that did not win, but Richard Dice, what a beast in our GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia Game of the Week. He had 17 total tackles, 3 TFL, and a PBU in the Tigers' 8-point loss against the Wolves. Defensive back of the week nominee, Peyton Zachary. Told you he had the 84-yard pick six in that victory against BT. But the winner is Brooks County's Marcus Hardwick. He had 2 interceptions in the Trojans' victory over Fitzgerald, including an 85-yard pick six. Place kicker of the week, Swainsboro's Matthias Castillo hit a 27-yard field goal with 50 seconds left in the game to lift the Tigers to a 44-42 shootout win over Thompson. And my return man of the week comes from that same game. Marco Danford had 87-yard kick return touchdown for the Tigers to go along with 114 yards rushing on 11 carries and a touchdown. So like, follow, subscribe, and share. Let's take a look at my rankings. Grayson remains number 1 in 6A, Thomas County Central in 5A, North Oconee in 4A, Sandy Creek in 3A, Carver Columbus in 2A, Heard County in 1A Division 1, Lincoln County in Division 2, and Hebron Christian in the private classification. There has not been a lot of fluctuation there in my rankings, especially there at the top. That's because I try to pick them right from the very beginning. Now, I said that I'm bragging about it, so this next week it'll be total mayhem. But it's been good so far. There has been some movement in 5A. Milton went up to number 3, Hoco up to 5, and Sequoia up to 6. And 4A, Cass jumped in there in the rankings at number 10 a couple of weeks after they upset North Cobb of 6A. 3A, Troop debuts at number 9. In AA, Ringgold and North Murray jump in there at 9 and 10. And I'm not going to go through all 80 teams in my rankings, but you can find my complete rankings on Twitter, X, at Matt Stewart TV or on my Facebook page, Matt Stewart Sports. Like, follow, subscribe, and share with your high school football friends. Time now to bring in Colquitt County head coach Sean Calhoun. And, Coach, thanks a lot for being with us.
Well, thank you so very much for having me.
Congrats on a wild 43-36 win at Lee County on Friday night. Your Packers jumped out to a 36-6 halftime lead. And then despite a running clock there in the fourth quarter, the Trojans, as you might have expected, made a huge run on your team in that fourth quarter. But you held on to get the win, now 2-1 on the season. What's your thoughts coming out of that big win over Lee County and heading into a very hectic week?
Well, one, it was a great win for us. Obviously, we had been on a bye week. Unfortunately, didn't play well going into the bye week, so it felt like it took about 1 or 2 months to get to Lee County, but we really kind of got back to some of the basics, really got back to some special teams work and went up there and played a really good first half and really did things that we're coached to do and did some things really well. And obviously, held on there at the end. It was 43-12, going into the fourth quarter. So, but, hats off to Lee County. They're a superb program, superb football team that is never going to quit. But it was good for us to get the win and now get some big time lessons that we can learn from. You got to play 4 quarters. And so that's what hopefully we'll be doing down the stretch.
Was it a big emotional win for your guys? Because Lee County actually beat you guys for the first time ever last year, and you still lead the series now 13-1, but they got you last year, and obviously this series has been very competitive despite that wide disparity in the overall series record.
Yes, sir. Every year that we play those guys, coaches, players, everybody in our program knows that it's going to be a very physical game. Both sides got good players. Both sides got, good coaches. And that's why we continue to schedule them, because it's a non-region opponent. The gates and the crowds are always really good. And we always know playing them, that's a playoff level atmosphere and that's a playoff level opponent. And so we always look forward to playing those guys, and obviously if we can keep getting W's, that'd be great. But yeah, we were a little embarrassed last year, and again just did some things that you can't do to beat a good team like that, and are just very fortunate to hold on and come away with a big win.
It's a crazy week for your team. You're hosting Monroe Tuesday night to make up for your August 22nd game that was postponed because of weather. Then you host Tallahassee Rickards on Friday night. So you play 3 games the first 35 days of the season. Now you're going to play 3 games in 8 days. How do you manage that with your team this week? I guess the silver lining is this is the start of 6 straight home games for your team until the regular season finale at Richmond Hill.
So it's very very different. So obviously we sat down as a coaching staff and really looked at the calendar and really kind of mapped out these days, because it's uncharted waters. Obviously we talked to a couple teams that were a little bit around this scenario last year, kind of with the hurricane kind of backed them up. So we kind of talked to some teams and really kind of I guess looked at what they did, and so we feel like the schedule's good. Obviously we got to take care of our guys, but obviously it's a really exciting week, and on top of 2 games, it's also homecoming week for us. And so we just been just pumping a whole lot of excitement, right, wrong, or indifferent. I think the kids like games better than practices anyway. So I'm like, hey, you're about to get all you want. And so we're calling it a September to remember. And then Tuesday night, you're going to get a little paction.
That's right. Paction instead of maction.
Absolutely.
That's going to be fun. So I'm not so old that I can't remember. I can confirm that kids do like games better than practices. I still remember practice. Much prefer to play a game. So you're spot on there. So, after all this, you host Lowndes. And in my 6A rankings, I got 4 teams from your region, including you, of course, in my top 10. So I'm not going to ask you about the region right now. You got enough on your plate right now. But I do want to ask you this, because I think it's a relevant question to what's going on in Georgia high school football right now. With the strength of your region, would you be in favor of 6A going to a power rankings format for the playoffs, kind of like what they're doing in 3A and below right now?
That's a great question. I hadn't really put a whole lot of thought to it. Something that I would just want to learn more about. I just don't know enough about it. Obviously you seed 1 through 32 and but there's a lot to be said for us, really fighting for the region championship. And if you're a 1 or 2, you got a home seed. So, obviously it would be kind of uncharted waters, but obviously, we're going to do whatever the Georgia high school, is doing. We schedule these non-region games, a Lee County, a Benedictine, a North Gwinnett, to get us prepared for, going over to Lowndes and Valdosta, because it's, I mean, our region top to bottom is really, really strong, and they all got good players and good coaches. So, but I guess get back to your question, just something that I would just need to just dive into more, um, and just see the pros and cons of it. But obviously, we're always trying to be the 1 seed coming out of our region, and and then obviously, if you would seed it 1 through 32, just would want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, the format that I have always proposed for many years now, and I know I talked at great length with Daniel Bruner at Walton about this last year, is I would come up with a formula that is power rankings based, but also continues to reward the region format. So the region teams, the teams that finish as region champions, would be seeded 1 through 8, guaranteed.
Yep,
The teams that were second place would be seeded 9 through 16, guaranteed. So therefore, you maintain that home field structure that's currently in place, and
that's
then
good.
17 through 32 could be distributed among the power rankings,
Okay,
just in a straight power rankings format. For instance, last year, based on the formula, the power rankings that they post on the GHSA website, and they post them for 7A just as well as they do, even though they don't use them right now. Richmond Hill, 5 teams out of your region would have qualified for the playoffs last year. So.
how about that? Which again, I mean, now that is the negative, right? Because with our region and maybe some others, there are 5 teams. Some years 6 teams that are playoff caliber teams, and you go against some other regions, right, wrong, or indifferent, that are just not, or have really bad records, but they just kind of get in because, yeah, because they're the 4 seed.
Yeah, and I think you get rewarded. Like, as you mentioned, you've already
You do.
you talked about all the teams that you've played, Lee County being that, Benedictine being that before that, and then Friday night we were televising Beaufort and Douglas County, which, basically amounts to a glorified exhibition game because it doesn't count towards your region. Well, why not be rewarded for scheduling tough in the non-region? That would help out your power rank. So.
Absolutely. Then we would definitely get helped out.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
absolutely. It would definitely help you. So we'll wait and see what happens. But I've been
Interesting.
behind the scenes been pushing that format. I would love to see him adopt that. I think it's a good compromise between what we have now and what we could have with power rankings. But anyway, we'll move off that subject because I can talk about that all day. You went 25-2 your first 2 seasons there at Colquitt, got to the semifinals, got to the quarterfinals. You lost a huge chunk of players from those 2 teams going into after the 2023 season. Went 8-4 last year, still won the region championship, mind you. So now you're in the 2025 season, 3 games in. What do you know about your team right now?
That we're trending in the right direction, and that's definitely where we want to be. Obviously, last year was a lot of guys filling the void for the big graduating class that we had those 2 years prior, and not just graduating classes, but a couple elite football players, and
Absolutely.
and so obviously, really, really good elite football players make us better coaches. And so, obviously, when you lose that, you just got to go back to, your regular coaching and truly developing, and your game plans get different, and you may not score as many points and everything like that. So, I'm just really excited about this team because obviously, a lot of those kids from last year are now getting a lot more experience this year, because obviously there's only one way to get experience, and that's to play on Friday night. But it was good, to win 3 region championships. Obviously, we're trying to win 4. I was actually shocked about this. That's never happened in our school's history before. So we are trying to make
Shocked,
a
but
run.
not shocked considering the region you play in. So,
Well, very true. So, that's a small goal for us. With something that obviously, we we take a lot of pride in winning a region championship, and then obviously you want to get to game 15 and find a way to win that. But we just want to try to have a great homecoming week here, and we normally say, hey, go 1-0 each week. Now we're trying to say, can we make it 2-0?
Go 2-0 this week.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Talking about elite personnel, let's talk about some of your players, and it starts with your consensus 4-star Jay Lamar, committed to Georgia. He's rated as high as the number 11 running back in the entire country for 2026. He rushed for 162, scored 3 touchdowns in your win at Lee County. Give us the coach's perspective on Jay Lamar and what he brings to your offense and what a centerpiece he is for your game plan on that side of the ball.
Absolutely. And so not only the 162 and the 3 on the ground, but he also caught 2 touchdowns. So he tied
5 total touchdowns.
Yes, sir. So he tied a school record there, and I know if you ask him, he probably should have had 1 to 2 more. It's obviously he's a big part of what we want to do. For us, we got to be able to run the football, and to win big games, to win championships, you got to be able to run the football. And obviously, he's a talented player, big, strong, athletic, a kid who's really truly still learning football. Because us last year, he was able to play in, I think, about eight or 9 games, and actually had a little foot injury that kind of sidelined him the last 2 games of the season. And then this year, he got banged up on the second series, so he really didn't play any of Benedictine, and had 150 yards in our second game and 162 this game. So we just need to try to keep him healthy. Obviously we don't want to give him the ball 30, 40 times a game and try to make sure he lasts for 15 games. That's not gonna work. And so obviously we got to have 1 or 2 guys behind him, but he's a kid who's developing on and off the field. We're just trying our best to get him prepared for when he leaves us and goes up to Athens, and we want him to have a special senior season for us.
Yeah, and certainly can't give him the ball that many times playing 6A football in the state of Georgia. Just physically, you couldn't hold up.
No. Yes, sir.
Because it's like playing college football on Friday night. It's good to have him, especially considering you're starting a sophomore at quarterback in Cohen Lawson. He was 9 of 16 for 169 and a couple of touchdowns on Friday night.
Yes, sir. So, Cohen was thrust into a difficult situation last year. One, you don't see many freshmen start, here for us. You don't see many freshmen start in this region and in this classification, or just in Georgia, period. But Cohen's mature enough and physically able to do the job. And obviously last year was kind of one of those things where, we slowly brought him along, but it was, hey, we're gonna kind of put you in the deep end. We're gonna be there with you, but you gotta swim. And so he did a really good job for us last year. Did a great job of getting us to a handful of wins. Obviously, backup quarterback Zion Aldridge had to come in for 2 games. 2 road games, and those were 2 great wins. But, Cohen's been a different player this year, which is what you want. Second year in the system, second year starter, making better decisions, putting the ball where it needs to be. And we just hope that continues.
Yeah, the bad news is when you're starting a freshman quarterback in your region, the good news is he gets to his sophomore season and he's already a veteran quarterback. He's got 3 years in front of him. So.
Absolutely. And again, it just goes back to that experience piece. There's only one way to get experience, and that's the play, and that's also the importance of playing playoff games. So it's not like you just played 10, he was able to play 12, and you kind of do that for 2 or 3 years. You may get a junior or a senior who's a 5th, almost 6-year guy because they played so many playoff games.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your defense. Your linebacker, Braden Ruiz, and safety, Alfonso McNeil, have been your top 2 tacklers so far this season. Tell me about those guys.
Absolutely. So, definitely doesn't surprise me. Start with Alfonso, a kid that played every down for us last year, played a little bit as a sophomore, was one of our 4 team captains voted on by the players. He's an absolute football player. He's a safety, but he has a linebacker mentality, and he's all over the field, plays all special teams for us. I mean, he's one of those that truly, when that clock strikes 0, his tank is empty because he has emptied it out. And, I wish I could kind of clone him and have 50 more kids just like him. And then, Braden Ruiz, is definitely a returning veteran at the linebacker spot. Again, played every down for us last year, played a handful of snap for us as a sophomore. And is, and one of the biggest things that you want at that linebacker spot is you want production. And he's doing a really good job of, reading his keys, executing the game plan, and really being a physical football player, but making tackles, because that's what you need your linebackers to do, is make tackles, get us lined up, and he's kind of the quarterback of the defense. So those two guys are doing a fantastic job, and hopefully they'll have a great week.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Graham brothers, even though they're not brothers at all, just have the same last name, but making big plays for you on the defensive side of the ball, McKenzie and Markivren.
Yes, sir. So, those two guys are super athletic, do a really good job for us. Just bring a lot to the table, right? Because you can blitz them, they can play man, they can play zone. They play all special teams for us, and they really complement each other. One can be the boundary player, one can be the field, and you can flip them, and they just do a really good job for us. Obviously, they're still learning. Both juniors, so played a lot as sophomores, and just again, we always want to be trending in the right direction, and we really feel like these guys are, and definitely feel like these two are going to have a really good rest of the season for us.
Well, it definitely feels like you're trending in the right direction, even going back to last year. And even though you had the second round playoff exit, which I know was a disappointment to you guys, losing to Collins Hill at home, but a very good Collins Hill team, I think that we would all agree, and no shame in losing to those guys. But all the players that played last year are now 1 year more experienced, and I think it's starting to manifest itself in what you've seen from your team so far. So do you feel like, you survived this week with the 2 games, the Paction, as you like to call it, looking forward to that. Gives us a Tuesday game to keep an eye on this week. That's always a lot of fun. Do you feel like if you can get by this week, now you're going to settle into more of a routine than the first part of your season here has not been routine at all because of the interruptions, but settle into a Friday night, game week routine for your team and going into region play?
Absolutely. Obviously, a game week, everybody kind of gets in their, comfort zone, and what you're doing Sunday all the way through Friday, and obviously the start of this season's been a little bit different, and a really long road trip, and a weather delay, and this and that. But I'll tell you what, our kids have not batted an eye. Our kids are like, Coach, y'all just tell us what we need to do, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability. But yes, I definitely want to get through this week. Hopefully it's a really good week for us, and then just kind of sit back, just kind of catch our breath real quick, because we don't have very long. And then obviously we got to go over there to a really good Lowndes team who, probably returning one of the better offensive players in the state of Georgia, in their quarterback. But obviously before we can get to that, we got to kind of handle this unique but really fun week for us in a very mature manner, and figure out a way to get a couple W's.
Yeah, that quarterback of theirs kind of burst on the scene, and now here he is as a junior, rated as one of the top quarterbacks in the country in 2027. So no doubt that'll pose some problems for you. And you mentioned the North Gwinnett game, which I didn't even mention. Got a chance to see a little bit of that game, but that was a game you lose 21-7, but you were very much in that game. You were very much right there with a chance to maybe steal that road game late in that game, and then had a penalty go against you in the fourth quarter.
Yes, sir. And obviously that quarterback over there, deserves every accolade and offer. And then, and then the North game, we just didn't play enough. We just did not play well enough to win. And that's a really good team, really good program. And you just can't do some of the things that we did and expect to be there in the fourth quarter. But again, I mean, it was we could have cut it to a 1-score game with 2 or 3 minutes there. And then we just do something silly that, again, just something that we got to continue to learn and grow from.
That's what the early season's for, and now the big season is getting ready to come in a couple of weeks. Enjoy this week, and thanks a lot so much, Sean, for taking time to visit with me, even though it's a very hectic week for you guys.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and go Pack.
There you go. Go Pack and Paction this week, all week long in
Mhm.
Moultrie. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Always great to visit with Colquitt County head coach Sean Calhoun. What a crazy week they got coming up this week with a game on Tuesday and a game on Friday before they jump into region play 2 Friday nights from now. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. Let's take a look at the recruiting news this week, and there's been not a lot of action this past week. We had 4 kind of major news pieces last week, but only one this week, and that's Riverwood 2026 wide receiver Zach Stair committed to Georgia State over 9 other offers, including Ole Miss and Maryland. 4-year player for Riverwood. He has had 107 career receptions for 2,105 yards and 22 touchdowns. But I do have a very interesting story I want to pass along, a Make That Kid an Offer success story to tell you about. Got a text from Rob Vaca about his son, Kyle Vaca, who played at Johns Creek and then at Kell and is now at Eastern Kentucky. And he sent me a clip of the ESPN Plus broadcast. They were playing at Marshall this past week and had a catch. And he's in his redshirt freshman season, and he's played in 41% of the Colonel's offensive snaps. So congratulations to Kyle Vaca. Very proud of this young man. And, you know, I'm not saying that Make That Kid an Offer got him an offer to college, but it helped kind of expose him. And that's the whole purpose of that Make That Kid an Offer program that, you know, we run during GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia. And he did end up with a number of offers and chose Eastern Kentucky. And this Saturday, the Colonels will be playing at West Georgia, and there'll be a bunch of former Georgia high school football stars playing in that game as Eastern Kentucky plays at West Georgia. So congratulations to Kyle and to his dad, Rob. I know they're very excited with the way his career has started out there at Eastern Kentucky. All right, like, follow, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's take a look at the 5 biggest games to watch this weekend before we close things out. Starting with Florida 5A number 6 Daytona Beach Mainland playing at Coffee. The 2023 state champion Trojans are 2-2 on the season and playing their 3rd straight out-of-state opponent before starting region play next week. This is the first ever meeting between these two teams. Top prospects to watch for Coffee, it's 3-star running back Kentavious DeBruce, and for Mainland, it's 3-star linebacker and USF commit Dennis King. 6A number 7 North Gwinnett playing at Parkview. This is the Eric Godfrey Bowl. Of course, Eric Godfrey was our guest here on the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast a couple of weeks ago. He played at Parkview. He coached at Parkview for a decade before he decided to leave and go to North Gwinnett. So now he's going up and playing and coaching against his alma mater in the school where he coached for 10 years. So actually more than 10 years because he was an assistant there before he was a head coach. So this is a big deal. This is why I call it the Eric Godfrey Bowl. Adam Clack, of course, now the coach there of the Panthers. And so he's trying to get things going again with the Panthers. They're 2-2 on the season. Bulldogs are 3-1. And to intensify the whole thing, this is now a Region 7 6A matchup. You might remember when Coach Godfrey was here on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. When he went to North Gwinnett, they weren't in the same region. So he's thinking, oh, gosh, we'll never play him. And then they put him in the same region, so now they play each other every year. 11th all-time meeting series tied 5-5. Top prospects, North Gwinnett 3-star offensive lineman Zachary Lewis. He's committed to Georgia. And for Parkview, it's 2027 4-star safety KJ Caldwell. Private number 1, Hebron Christian at 4A number 7, Blessed Trinity. Lions 2-1, and this will be their first game in 3 weeks because they had a game postponed against Christ School out of North Carolina. Titans are 3-1, coming off a 21-10 loss at Milton. Just the second all-time meeting, BT a 24-10 winner at Hebron last year, and of course, the Lions would go on to win the private state championship last year. Top prospects, BT 2027 5-star and number 1 edge rusher DJ Jacobs. And for Hebron, it's 2026 3-star offensive lineman Fletcher Turk. So that should be quite a matchup there on the line of scrimmage. Number 2 on my list is Alabama 6A, number 1 Parker against Georgia 6A, number 3 Carrollton. Trojans off to a 5-0 start and coming off that big win at Gainesville this past Friday night. Thundering Herd are 4-0. This will be the second all-time meeting between these two teams. Carrollton, a 48-26 road winner there last year. Top prospects, Carrollton's loaded, of course, four-star corner Dorian Barney, who's committed to Michigan. Of course, four-star wide receiver Ryan Mosley, who's committed to Georgia. For Parker, it's four-star defensive lineman Bodney Cleveland, who's committed to Texas. And number one on my list is North Cobb at North Paulding, our GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia showdown. This is a big Region 5-6A matchup. Both teams are already 1-0 in region play. And even though it's still very early in the region schedule, the winner will likely be in the driver's seat to win the region championship by winning this game. The Warriors are 3-2 overall, been beat by McEachern and then got upset by Cass, so a little bit of a surprise that they're only 3-2 going into this game. Wolfpack are 4-1 overall. Their one loss coming to Harrison a couple of weeks ago. This is the 10th all-time meeting with North Cobb leading 6-3, including 4 in a row in the series. And the top prospects to watch for the Warriors is four-star quarterback Teddy Gerard, committed to Notre Dame. Excited to see this young man play. He's a 2027, so he's still got 2 years left in high school. And for North Paulding, it's three-star safety Markel Taylor, who's committed to Cincinnati. And again, that's our GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia Game of the Week. Join me along with Wayne Gandy and John Nelson and our entire GPB Emmy Award-winning team there at The Den in North Paulding. It'll be the first time we've ever done a game there. So always like it, always excited when we go to a place for the first time. And so that is the case this Friday night. And I invite you to join us Friday night, 7:30 on GPB. That's going to wrap up the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. Thanks for watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on iHeart, listening on Apple. And again, like, follow, subscribe, and please share it with a friend. We'll see you next week.